New week, new theme song, new overlay. This is the beauty of making all this kind of live content on the fly. Dustin Kava, great to see you again on Because Cannabis. Thank you everyone for joining us each week. You never know exactly what it's going to look like when you tune in, though. I think, Dustin, I feel like after doing 3 or 4 of these shows together, thank you, by the way, Dustin, for filling in last week. We'll have to see. Give me a quick recap of Crypto and Cannabis, the third episode of Because Cannabis. I feel like, Dustin, we are slowly honing in on what Because Cannabis is, right? We wanted to talk about the product. We wanted to talk about the world living in it. As with anything, it grows and evolves as you go through time. So I feel like you feeling like we're getting closer. It's going to be a little bit different next week. There's always tweaks, right? But are we close? Are we close to where you want it to be?
Not even close. I'm one of those guys who are never even satisfied. But you know what? I like the momentum of the progress, and to me, sometimes that matters the most.
That does. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Because Cannabis, my name is BC Wayman. Whatever spot he's in for you, that is Dustin Kava. We're here again each week to talk about, I don't know, to talk about cannabis, having highbrow, down to earth conversations about the legal cannabis industry and the different aspects of it and the people that work with it. Some weeks we'll have interviews like we had last week. And let's do a quick recap. If you haven't checked it out, visit the YouTube channel, Wayward Media. That's where you'll find all of our great shows that Wayward Media produces. Thank you, Wayward Media, for having Because Cannabis on there. Check out Wayward Media. You can also find us on YouTube, Wayward Media. Go there. You'll find the Because Cannabis channel. And we're on episode 4 right now. Episode 4, 3 episodes, 2 episodes so far. Dustin and I talking. Today will be a third, but we're going to have guests too. We got some really great ones lined up. And last week, Dustin, you had Dan on. Just give a quick shout out to Dan. If people haven't checked out the show, why should they go? Not right now. Like, don't stop right now. Let this finish. It'll only take an hour, but binge us when we're done. Go back, subscribe to make sure you don't miss the next one. Episode 3, Because Cannabis, Crypto and Cannabis, Dustin. Why should people go check it out?
You know what? That Crypto and Cannabis, the conversation with Dan from Lemur Genomics out of the northern Michigan, the thumb up there. It was a pretty powerful conversation. There was a lot of talk about transparency within the industry, which I think, a lot of today is actually going to start talking about some of that. And to be honest, I feel like we got through about 1/3 about the potential of what crypto and cannabis could actually mean in the industry. So, you know what? It was a great episode. I had a lot of fun talking to him, and he has some, incredible insight from the breeder perspective that really shed light on some of what should be and shouldn't be in the industry.
I've really not been someone who traditionally has been interested in the growing of the plant, right? I like the consumption of it. I get into and appreciate the marketing aspect and the operational parts of it, even the logistical supply and order function of it and how it works. But the grow part has never been something that prior to the last, say, year or so, I really was into. But as I've gotten to know people much smarter than I about the plant, and anything, right? I've just really become interested in it, and I really enjoy that aspect. So I hope to have more growers on, more breeders on, more people talking about that. But you also, as you said, talked a little bit about supply logistics, transparency in that. That's something that, and we're not going to talk about it today, but sometime I'm sure we'll talk about the use of QR codes, Delta 8 products. Where does it come from? Like, is it legit? As more and more people start selling it, is it a good product, right? Because that's something that, as states go legal, and we'll talk in a few minutes about our state of the day, so to speak, as states go legal, control, quality, having consistency, all of these things are going to begin to rear their head for people. And you're going to, while now people, I think, are very happy to be like, I'm going to have the plant. They're all excited. Yeah, I can go. I can buy it legally. Not only can I buy flower, I can have a pick of strains, like menu, like all these options. I can have, whoa, I don't have to get just flower. I can have edibles. I can have candy. I can have, I was talking to Danny McQuiston of Lost Coast Alchemy, who will be on our show in a little bit, living out in the Emerald Triangle, Humboldt County. We were talking the other day, telling me about nebulization, right? No combustion at all, just straight nebulization. done, right? Not even inflammation of the lungs in that sense, really giving it and increasing its medicinal value. Because let's be real, there is probably something that's not great about the smoke in the lungs. So, any healthier way to get there. But as we get to those stages, as we do with anything, quality control is going to be a big part of that. Do you like having controls? Before we talk a little bit specifically about what's happening in Oklahoma, just in general, right? As someone who has been advocating the plant, Dustin, since I've known you, and obviously long before going into it, like as someone that's been into it, are you excited about regulations in the industry of any aspect, or do you wish it would stay Wild Wester-ian? I don't know however you pronounce it. Wild Westian, something like that.
I think if you would ask me this question 10 years ago, I would have been absolutely on the Wild West front. I
Ah, of
think,
course, right?
just that rebel attitude of being young and just, but the more and more you are seeing the pendulum get swung over to that lack of regulation, um, you can see some of the detriments and some of the things that are happening there, that it's just another barrier for them to overcome. It doesn't necessarily mean less barriers for the state in general or for the patient in general. And so, I think, to me, I think regulation can be good, but the question is once you push that boulder down the hill, what happens as it rolls down? It never seems to quite stop. And I don't know, there's something to that. I also think that there's something to the fact that once it is regulated, it's a lot harder to take away out of the public perspective. And so, I think that's powerful, where the cannabis is introduced into the statehood in some capacity, and now it's forever going to be harder for the state to take that away. And I like those things. I think those things can be powerful, but that's not without headache.
I agree. We're going to talk Oklahoma in a second. Don't forget, if you want to join the show, hopefully you're watching on YouTube right now. If you're listening, audio wise, we should be, hold on, let me bring you back. I just went to like the solo shot, Dustin. I was going to be like, yeah, if you're listening on audio and you're like, what's he talking about camera? YouTube, check us out. Follow us at MeetWM, at MeetWM, MEET. WM pretty much everywhere socially to find out when the next live show will be. We'll try and get a little more consistent. Pretty much Fridays, you'll always get a show from Dustin and I. Uh, we launched our audio portion yesterday, right? So now, because cannabis, the first episode currently available as of this. By the time you probably hear this in the next day or two, it'll be up to 2 or 3 episodes. Every Monday, you can check out the audio version of Because Cannabis anywhere that you listen to podcasts: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. What's your podcast option of choice, Dustin? How do you listen to podcasts?
You know what? I am a Spotify user at heart. They got me on that pro subscription, and you know what? The premium subscription, I mean, and I love it. I can't say enough about it. I'm in.
When you go to Spotify, do you have to follow or like or subscribe? What's their little icon you have to give to show support and love to your show?
It is
And the
follow.
rate too. Those are the two things we got to do. What do they do? How do they rate and like on Spotify? What do they do?
There
Walk
is
me
no
through.
rate. You're just following.
All right. Well,
And so, and
follow
then
us.
and then your like is a heart, and it does introduce to the algorithm, but
So,
hardest on Spotify.
someone was trying to show me. This is totally unrelated. How to make a heart like using. I'm terrible at this. Like the fingers. Like you used to make it like this, right? But now you kind of make it. I don't know. You kind of make it differently. Anyway, hit the
Oh,
heart on
cute.
Spotify. Yeah, right. I don't know. It's like it used to do this, right? This was the heart, but it really doesn't look like a heart. I'm terrible. I
And
have
and for
small.
those of us who are listening on the podcast, he is attempting to make a heart with his fingers, but doing it quite
Poorly,
awfully. Yeah.
poorly. The show is now available audio wise. Check us out: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. Follow, like, subscribe, whatever you do. Rate us. Type a few words when you're rating us. That's what helps gets those bumps up there. Give us 5 stars. We appreciate that. That's exciting. I'm excited to launch the audio portion of it. I think we're just finding our footing, Dustin, with this show. I think we got a lot of greatness ahead of us in the future. We're little kind of baby podcasters talking about cannabis, Dustin, right? We're like that little seed. We're that little seed that's going to grow, and we're going to water dirt, going to blossom up. All right. First topic of the day. Speaking of blossoming, the show today, Sooners and Sweets, going to give you an idea of where we're headed here. So, speaking of blossoming, And around 2018, Dustin, the state of Oklahoma, one of the very few red states, as it were, one of the very few conservative minded or centric states. I think people think of Oklahoma. You say, when I say Oklahoma, Dustin, you think,
Life in prison for a seed.
whoa, all right. Well, life in prison for a seed. I was gonna go like, cowboys and tumbleweeds, but you go straight to the heart of the commentary. So life in prison for a seed. Not any longer. Not as of 2018, sort of. It's a little complicated, and I think that's what we want to talk about today. So Oklahoma in 2018 passed medicinal cannabis, became one of the first conservative-minded states to do so. And for reference, another state like Florida had already had legalized cannabis. They had legalized cannabis in 2013, 2014 is when they passed it. So they are a very heavy volume dollar wise state, right? But it's a very conservative state, and most of the southern states are typically CBD only, maybe medicinal programs. So Oklahoma decides to roll in. They decide to launch it, and they kind of went a little against the system. And I don't know the history. I probably should know it better before we talk about it today of why they were so loose in their regulations. But if you're not familiar, Dustin, Oklahoma walked in with some of the fewest and lightest restrictions when it comes to the amount of money needed to get into cultivation or dispensary operations, the amount of paperwork needed, the application process, the quality assurance checklist that need to typically be filled out. Where in Ohio, our program is one of the most restrictive and expensive to get into. It's not the most. I know a lot of people get mad about Ohio's program, but it's not the most expensive program, but it's up there, right? And Oklahoma rolls in super cheap entry fee, super easy logistical to get into there. Really, no really control system in place, and within a short amount of time, it became Toklahoma, right? It became, and that's what they call it now, Toklahoma. So, knowing that, Dustin, and I know you did a little bit of reading up on it. So when I say Toklahoma or a state that just says, screw it, we'll just make medicinal, but not really regulate it. How does it make you feel? You get excited? You bummed out? Where are you at now with what's happening over there?
I mean, if you, this was a rabbit hole, I guess I truly didn't realize the extent. I had understood
Right?
the per capita numbers, but I did not understand any. My understanding was only such a shallow portion. I mean, truthfully, the more I deep dive into this, my jaw just dropped further and further and further. And, again, 10 years ago, I would have been praising a decision like this. And now that I even, and a part of me had already disagreed with a portion of this, but, you know, um, yeah, it's unbelievable to see what are some of the repercussions of the pendulum swing going in the opposite direction. I cannot believe the boom and how many licenses there are in general. I mean, Ohio has 13, Oklahoma 8,500, and it's just like, I don't know. There's something to that. There's something just mathematically absurd about something like that I just think, I don't know. It's something.
Um, oh man, I gotta keep talking. Oh
Oh yeah.
man.
So
No, I sit there. I was trying to find. This is terrible. This is why we're trying to get better. I was trying to bring up this article to show you some information about it. But as we're working through the setup, right, the article wouldn't pull up for the share thing at the time. So yeah, so let me give you some stats here, right? $2,500 entry fee, basically $25 kind of flat application fee to get into it. To give you a quick reference, Ohio has not only a either 20,000 based off your size cap plant or 2,000. Actually, they don't cap on plants. Some states like Michigan, Colorado have plant cap, right? You can grow so many per license. Other states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, you can grow so many per square footage. They went with low entry fee, no plant cap, right? Go all into it and just see what happens. And so they have thousands, right? They have literally thousands of dispensaries and thousands of people growing within their program, which is insane. We have, in Ohio, for example, we have 33 growers that are here right now. We have 60 dispensaries. They're looking to upgrade it to about 170. Um, there are some 9,000 entities currently. Actually, I just saw it just went down. I take that back. It's about 8,300. They just had a decrease Every month, it went down in a month like 100 dispensaries. So it's a very open Wild West system where anyone with low entry can get in. And so what we saw happen in a good way is a lot of people come pouring into the state, and this is where it could be both good and bad out of state process, come pouring into the state, flying in from all these neighboring states and beyond, or picking up their grow operations in the overcrowded or oversaturated markets of Oregon and Washington that are just struggling, right? The wholesale price in California of a pound is in the hundreds now. It's like in the hundreds. And for a pound, wrap your brain around that, stoner from the Midwest who can't get good anything but brown frown, right? Like pounds of high grade product is in the hundreds. So you have to find unique ways to make profit and such. And so it's just a different world. So they picked up and they came to that state. Now, it's a couple different branches here to climb, Dustin. So let's start with this. Uh, Oklahoma said, we don't care where you come from. Come from any state you want. Most states have a moratorium of what they like to say, where you can't be from an outside area, right? You can't be from outside the region. You can't be from outside the state, whatever kind of clauses they put in. It has to be in state ownership. Now, there's a lot of people that use loopholes. Ohio's was a year, 365 days. A lot of companies end up getting fines because they try to sell or transfer the licenses too early before they can do it. But Oklahoma said, nope, whatever you want to do, come on in. So, uh, as an outside grower, Dustin, you may say, woo, sweet, I could just barge on in. But if you're someone from Oklahoma who's like, bleeding sooner red all day, right? You are crimson. And that's Alabama. Terrible. I don't know what I'm talking about. Does that, do you like those kind of state or foreign moratoriums for cultivation licenses? Should it go to the people in the state, or should it be a free market, even though it's a state by state legalization process?
I mean, we've seen what happens when you are not really an outsider. We have close people, at least I have someone close to me who left this state 10 years ago because the state wasn't ready to have the initiative, goes to Michigan, starts up a business out there, and then comes back to Ohio when Ohio is finally ready. And because of that, he's labeled now Michigan coming into Ohio. And so,
Oh,
it was like, no, everybody I know is in Ohio. My whole life, I left everything to leave Ohio to start this to be ready. And
yeah.
so I've seen the other play, but when I was reading the notes about, when I was like diving into this, I thought Oklahoma did have a rule that said 75% of the company had to be owned by someone who lived in Oklahoma for longer than 2 years, or 2 years or under, sorry,
Well,
whatever.
that's the rub.
But
That's the
that's,
rub in the Oklahoma program is
yeah, and
no one's checking. That's the problem.
exactly. And,
No
and,
one's
and,
checking.
And the truth is we fall down to this concept of ownership of a company. What exactly does that mean? I mean, the second a shell company is managing the facility or the procedures of it, what ownership is actually owned by that person, that Oklahoma entity or whatever. So I think there's a lot of gray area. And I couldn't even imagine what the logistics would take to check that many facilities or that many licenses out.
I don't think Oklahoma did either. They haven't even been to less, or I should say, they have been to less than 25% of the 9,000 some
It's so crazy.
legalized facilities, right? And so most states are getting checked by whatever department runs them, maybe multiple times a month, right? You get to know your inspector on hand. You have cultivation companies, dispensary operation companies, processors in Oklahoma who have yet to see a single official from whatever organization is overseeing their legalized medicinal program. Yet 2+ years they've yet to see a single person walk in the door, and that is where it is mind-blowing, especially for these states that are locked down tight. Michigan runs a happy medium. They kind of are locked down, but they really are way less restrictive with what they have. Now, what Oklahoma did, I mean, they also brought in home grow, so medicinal patients could grow. It probably doesn't surprise you, by the way. A state like Ohio is about 0.9% like population saturation. 0.9% of Ohio's population is a medicinal program, in the Ohio's medicinal program. Pennsylvania, right to the east of where I sit here is about 2.1. Michigan's just over a percent, but when you have adult use programs, you tend to have fairly low population saturation numbers of medicinal. Florida, even though Florida brought in $1 billion in 2021 in medicinal only, no state can even touch that. They're only at 0.8%. Oklahoma, do you have a guess? Do you know? Like, I'm going to blow your mind here.
Uh, it's more like 3 to 4, I thought, or maybe
Yeah,
even up
right.
towards
Four and a half
five.
percent last
Shit.
number. 4.5%. You're right there. 4.5% projected,
Mm.
maybe up to 5%, depending of population there. So you have obviously demand for it. You obviously have that. Some of those states, by the way, you were talking about the out of state. Some with the state is cracking down. So that is a reason why they did go lower recently on their numbers where states were cracking down on it.
But I mean,
It's an
let's just talk
interesting.
about
Go
I
ahead.
mean, let's talk about that barrier of entry a little bit. You not only mentioned like the $2,500 barrier to entry, but now for an Oklahoma, for a local Oklahomian, I mean, what's the term for
I
an
don't know.
Oklahomite? For a
Oklahoma.
Sooner, for a
For a
Sooner to get their
Sooner.
card, honestly, it's $100 fine and you can get it within minutes. If you think about being an Ohio patient, it takes X amount of days to get my records from the doctor. It takes X amount of days to set up the appointment. It takes, 24 hours to have the system updated. Then you have to pay the state after like there's all these barriers that are time barriers. In Oklahoma, $100 and in 2.5 minutes, I got my card and I'm legal, and that is, I think that's the biggest eye-opening thing to me about this is it also showed what happens when you remove the barrier for patients. Can you really have 10 or 15 or 25% of the population registered and participating in the revenue that's being given to the state? And to me, I don't know. I think that if anything should be have an eye opening, it should be that should be the thing where every state's ears are perking up and they're saying, wow, what did they do differently with patients? And it's that.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? You are correct. They have a very, very low entry restrictions, right? It's not a whole huge process. The dollar amount is fairly low comparatively to most states. Um, so obviously that's a big part of getting patients in, and also because there are very few requirements, you probably have people who are taking advantage of using it as an adult use type program of that regard. It is interesting though to see. I think what's happened though, and this is where if you Google right now, like Oklahoma cannabis news or medicinal marketplace news, what you're going to find is the pushback, right? So this is in the state we're in now. In fact, Mississippi, which just legalized medicinal cannabis, and they have the votes and the signatures to get adult use, but the government is fighting it, kind of like South Dakota, where in 2020 they approved both adult use and medicinal on the same ballot at the same time. Never been done before, an unprecedented kind of move. Yet the government ship of it, right? Whatever you want to call it, the governor and their House and their Senate, their Congress decided to remove the adult use portion, right? People voted for it. I don't know why I said this. No one votes like that. I don't know. How do you vote anymore? Like you vote. I can't even recall. It's a weird thing. I don't remember.
I
So
still
however you
like,
vote, is it like a pencil? Like, do you
yeah,
still fill in the bubbles? Right? The bubbles, right?
I still do my bubbles. Yep.
That's a terrible thing to forget. So like it's been a couple years. I only do it every so often. So I am registered people before you comment. If you do want to comment, leave it there, but I am just back off. You fill in the bubbles on the little sheet, right? You give it to that 97-year-old person, and I know I've been there. Anyway, so on South Dakotians, we're gonna just really mess up all these names and proper terminology for these people. On the South Dakotians voted for medicinal and adult use, but the government shipians make up all sorts of language said no. Allowed medicinal, said no adult use. Mississippi is struggling to launch their ballot approved medicinal program. In the comment from I don't think it was the governor, I think it was the one of their House or Senate leaderships, Republican, said, "We're not gonna be Oklahoma." Right? They're freaking out about it. Because here's the other problem with what Oklahoma's doing is the only people really making money are like people who just have a ton of money already to come in and put together big operations, right? I mean, I think that's not all the people that are making money. I'm sure, let's be real, there are probably some success stories from people who are in Oklahoma, maybe some people from some underserved communities, maybe some people even from typical non-representation, maybe some African American, female ownership that probably had a great success. And we can't deny there's probably, because of this low entry fee and because of the ability to get out of state, some people probably did pretty well. But what you tend to see is the same people who you always see. We were watching a news article the other day when we were talking about the show, and it was like Oklahoman's medical cannabis marketplace under fire. And what was it? It was like a dude who looked like me in like a sweater vest, right? It was a guy in a sweater vest in Oklahoma. I don't feel like Oklahomians wear sweater vests a lot. I may be stereotyping you there. I'm sorry, Oklahomians, if you do wear sweater vests. It's a fashionable look. I mean, it really is. But that was my point. I was like, that's not who I want to see when you have more states that are pushing more social equity. States like Massachusetts, which is doing it fairly well. Michigan has a pretty strong social equity program, or at least trying to launch it. It seems like a great opportunity. And I know a few people who went down there feeling like it was a great opportunity, but then it just became same old thing, right? Just rich get richer kind of thing. So I guess if you had to summarize, like thinking about what they've gone through and now they're pulling back down, and this has nothing really to do with federal legalization. That's a bigger conversation for another day. But as states go legal, thinking about how a state like Ohio or Pennsylvania has like super restrictive. You have Michigan, which take adult use out of it. Their medicinal is less restrictive. Then you have Oklahoma, which is Toklahoma. Uh, is there a model you like? Is there a model you prefer of those? Obviously, the somewhere in the middle is the perfect, but we can't do it, right? This is pick one of the three here. Uh, no rules, s- some rules, strict rules.
Ah, yeah, it's so hard. Do you honestly believe anybody keeps in those bubbles? If I did,
No,
obviously I think
of
I
course
would
not.
love to be a middle ground. I would like some restrictions. I mean, again, when you see how far the pendulum swung through not having any regulations with Oklahoma, you're just like, "Oh my gosh." I mean, they're putting them next to people's houses and they're putting them like
There is no restriction.
there's
That's
no zoning.
terrible.
There's no like it's unbelievable how little there is. And then, the more and more you look into it, you're like, whoa, there's a huge percentage portion of this that is like not even owned or ran by anybody within even the country. We're talking like, the Russian oligarchs. We're talking the Chinese oligarchs. We are talking large scale money from overseas has thrown into the hat in the mix in Oklahoma. And so when you say, how do you compete? The truth is you don't. I mean, like they had the ability to buy land at 15 times the cost just because the licensings were so cheap to enter. They're like, we can spend 2 million on the land and get 600 acres to build out, as opposed to just blowing it all on a license. And it's just like, but they're sticking it next to residential neighborhoods. You're
So
my
how all right. So you're a fan of cannabis, right? I'm down. How annoyed would you be if someone literally just like within 10 feet of your property line sets up a fairly large scale grow operation? Like even my most normal sense is like, God, I just don't want all that right by me, right? Like there's something you said, it sounds so cool. It sounds so great to have like free reign and no rules until that shit sets up in your neighbor's backyard.
well, and we're
All of your
not
neighbors' backyards.
And we certainly aren't talking about our neighbor in the home grows there. What we're talking about is a 75 greenhouse operation showing up in my backyard. It's a total different thing. I mean, there's no and not only that, but again, without the like Ohio has a lot of regulations on where the building can be situated, how far from anything, how much security, how many doors to enter the building, how much square footage of fence around the operation before you even get under, there's all of these thoughts put into this. And there, it's just like, nope, you literally can walk through a door and be in a grow. And it's just like, it's unbelievable. I've never ever, and I certainly, again, I never would have thought Oklahoma would have been the one to test this theory. Maybe Texas. I could see that outlaw in them
Texas,
being
man. No,
like,
Texas is
you know,
no way at all. Get your legal cannabis out of my face. Like Texas is not down with anything. They have a begrudgingly active medicinal program. They have a pretty flourishing CBD program. The funny part is the South, some of these really red states, not so much Oklahoma, Texas, but really some of these hurricane like Atlantic coast, the Carolinas, Kentucky, Virginia have amazing soil, particularly for CBD. So we've seen some really strong CBD and probably obviously Delta 8, Delta 10, all these other cannabinoids coming out of the lower kind of mid southern areas of Kentucky, Virginia. In fact, Kentucky's all in embracing it. They've gone for the bluegrass state to the CBD state, right? They're all in on that. Oklahoma was all in on it. They obviously are fighting back a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see for some of these other states. I think what had happened was initially the success of it may have given states like Mississippi and such a little bit of a excitement, right? They may have been like, "Woo, I like it. I see what's happening." But then what the outcome has been, they may push back. I could see this delaying potential, especially adult use legalization in any of those southern states that border that. In Kansas, which is one of the three holdouts that has nothing, right? Kansas, Idaho, and Nebraska have zip zero nada legal laws. They're not coming anytime soon because you can just go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma should just go adult use. They should just go adult use, say, fuck it, I'm all in. Screw you, Colorado. I see what you're doing, California, with your $6.5 billion in sales in 21. I don't care. We are Oklahoma, son. Just rewrite the history of that. Though, that said, I would imagine, and I'm not a cultivation expert, you're closer to that, Dustin, that the outdoor grows in Oklahoma, I don't know if that's the ideal soil for cannabis. It's very dry soil out there, so you'd have to really water it. I would guess most of the well-grown cannabis in Oklahoma has probably got to be indoors. It has to be
Well,
indoors.
they certainly, even the outdoor grows certainly aren't growing in the ground per se, too.
Sure, they're on
Like,
pots and things like that. A lot of
yeah,
sun, though. I mean, you get a lot of natural sunlight, so your water bill is going to be huge. Oh, that's the other part. Before we move
yeah.
on to the other thing, is the reason that maybe some of the leadership in Oklahoma is getting all annoyed and getting their, getting their buds in a bunch is because what is happening to the like the water bills, right? The electricity bills. They're just, those little dials, like it's like a movie that it's like spinning, like it's broken. How much water usage, the infrastructure, and this is a thing that most states go through. Oklahoma is going through it now, but states like California are dealing with that. Multiple states have this issue with what it does to utilities. Obviously, one of the most underappreciated aspects of running a facility is your water and electric bill are soups high, bro. I don't think you understand how big they are when you have 500 plants under there, how much water you will go through. Which brings us to another day and another conversation about the ways to recapture that water. But the attack on the state infrastructure, electrical grid, and water source in Oklahoma, a state that, by the way, last time I looked on the map, dry. Not a lot of water around
I
there.
was just gonna
So
say
that's
they
the other
pump
thing.
in almost every bit of water from outside. Like I can't see they are landlocked across the board with and flat. There's not even mountains where rainwater really comes out. It's just flat.
Flat.
So
Tokla freaking Homa, though. Never thought I'd have that
I'm so
conversation.
proud of
Never.
them.
Tokla Homa. I love it. I love it. Interesting. Good stuff out there. We'll see what's going on. We know a couple people from Oklahoma. So hopefully on a future episode of Because Cannabis from Wayward Media, we can get some of those people on, join us, check us out. Thank you if you're joining us now, watching it Because Cannabis. Follow us anywhere socially at MeetWM, MEETWM. Check us out, Wayward Media. That's who produces and distributes this show. A lot of great things coming, not only Dustin and I, Because Cannabis. Got some other amazing shows. Wayward Planet, the show I host, will be launching back up. Dustin going to be talking infrastructure. The Boro Network coming soon. Anthony Trav out there streaming. And then some other people that will be joining us soon. So Wayward Media, wayward.media on your interwebs there. Meet WM, and obviously our YouTube channel. Great place. And audio. You can now listen to Because Cannabis anywhere you enjoy your audio podcasts. Let me show you something, Dustin. Let me show you something here. I think I finally figured out my share screen issue from before. I had share screen fright. That was a bit embarrassing on my end. I just want to show a window Chrome tab. See, that's what I did before. See, I got to be more prepared. All right, I'm going to show you this picture right now and just tell me gut reaction to this giant mound that you see on screen. I'll give you a spoiler. That's a
It,
cannabis edible. right there. That is a cannabis edible right there. So when you see that, and I'll tell you some details and stats right there. When you see this, Dustin, what's your first question that comes to mind?
I mean, my stomach dropped immediately. It kind of made me sick at the thought of like, I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know it was even cannabis related. I hoped because the show is because cannabis, but it looked uncomfortable to me.
It looks uncomfortable.
It gave me that moist or like a pus, like either one of those words. That's kind of what I felt during that picture. But then you start talking about that it's actually cannabis in there, and I start saying, oh, what a waste. I know
Uh,
hundreds of patients that are dying for medicine. And what is that? What's it
all right.
for?
Let me
Guinness?
drop some stats on you here.
Please
I
do.
You can see it on the screen. I was trying to hide it from you a little bit. 135 pounds. That's 135 pounds of gelatinous material. Take away the cannabis that's inside of there. 2 feet wide, right? 2 feet wide. So now you got to kind of picture like what that's kind of looking like in front of you. So visualize that, everyone. If you're listening on the audio channels, on iTunes, on Spotify, on Google Play, if you're listening there, or if you're watching us, some kind of 2 feet circular diameter, like this pop top kind of thing, right? It's like a half circle. So this 2 feet blob, half circle, as you see on screen here, 135 pounds. So that's heavy. If you had to guess, Dustin, if you had to guess, how many milligrams do you think is inside of that particular 135 pound, 2 foot wide? Before we get to there, sour apple. Side note, if I'm going to choose to make a gummy that I'm going to obviously either share or something, sour apple feels like a very bold choice to go with gummy flavor, right? Sour apple is not where I'm going with that. So when you see that on screen, sour apple, how many milligrams THC do you think were involved in the making of that product?
I'm guessing 13,346.
No. Are you ready to know how much weed was not smoked in the state? By the way, this is from Missouri. So Kansas City, Missouri. Good Day Farms is the name of the company that made this product. They are launching. This is just recently that they rolled this out. They're launching a whole slew of products. We'll give Good Day Farms a quick plug as they took the time to do it, even if we do trash their idea in general. Sorry about that. Good Day Farms, Kansas City, Missouri, in a promotion. So this was a marketing stunt, right? And so maybe we can talk the validity of success for this marketing stunt. They crafted this. All right, Dustin, you ready?
Uh,
You're way off, by the way. You are
By
way
way
off.
over or way under?
Oh, you are so under. Times 10. 100,000 milligrams right here. It says it on the screen. We're rolled down. That is a 100,000 milligram cannabis gummy that this young gentleman here from Good Day Farms in Kansas City, Missouri is standing in front of. So now that I tell you the amount of product that relies on there, what does that make you?
It makes me think that they just put moldy product in a edible.
I'm gonna guess it's probably not consumed, which brings us to the point though. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? Like, what do you do with it now? So I get they're going, and you understand the idea behind a good viral marketing stunt. It raises attention. Here, let me do this. Let me close that screen real quick. Before we talk about that, let me show you one more here. So let's see, bring this up. We'll get better at this, people, as we work on sharing our Chrome tabs. I'm gonna walk you through the process of how I'm doing this now. All right, so now let's pop this sucker on screen, Dustin. Let it load up there. Computer running a wee bit. So come on in. Oh, there it is. All right, here's some happy people. These happy people are in where are these folks at? These are in Massachusetts. These are Massachusettsians. We're messing up all sorts of names here. Massachusettsians from a place called MaryMed, 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 a Massachusetts dispensary. So these fine folks made a brownie, the staple of infused cannabis, right? One of the first probably infused cannabis products every person has is a brownie that someone made at a party. You have no idea what's in it. It could be anything, it could be nothing. You just hope it tastes yummy, right? So this brownie here is 850 pounds, 3 feet by 3 feet, with about 15 inches high. So 3 feet by 3 feet square, 15 inches in depth. Um, Take a guess. This is way less, by the way. They went a little bit less milligrams here. So take a guess how many milligrams are in this. Way under the last one. The other one, I should have started with this one first. How many milligrams you think are in this brownie?
I'm going with 17,000 then.
You're still under 66 joints. I don't know who did the math because I think the joint total depends on who's rolling it. But the article says 66 joints. But if you roll heavy, bro, you're like 66 joints. Like, come on, that's probably like 20,000 milligrams. So that's 20,000 milligrams THC inside that product. 3 foot by 3 foot brownie into there. Once again, Mary Med in Massachusetts. So, first question, either the gummy or the giant brownie, Dustin, are you eating it? Are you
No.
taking a bite? Are you taking a slice like a birthday cake? Are you diving in? Like, do you just rip a piece off like the spinach dip that you get in the pumpernickel roll, and it's got the creamy spinach dip in the middle, and you kind of take a piece, and sometimes you kind of eat some of that pumpernickel? Are you doing that? Are you just saying F you and your giant brownie? How do you roll when someone says, hey, because I'm feeling like you rolled into the break room and you just go, right? And then you just take these giant slices. But I also can see the world where I just go, but I also get grossed out. Like, I don't like to, if I'm in a bar or any sort of place, and COVID has done away with a lot of this, where you have like a jar of shared nuts or pretzels. I don't share my nuts with anyone, right? I don't share my nuts or pretzels with anyone at all. I'm not putting my hand on someone else's nuts that are next to me in the jar, and no one else is putting their hand on my nuts that are next to me in the jar, or whatever thing I'm at, because my nuts are clearly on the table in front of us, between the guest and I. I think that was delicately played on my part. I don't share that. So I'm not going to share this. I get kind of grossed out, if I'm being honest, about birthday cake, like just the slicing. Where are you at? Are you eating either one of these, or are you walking away, regardless of your disgust for the waste of product? And you are correct. It's probably not great product. Are you still eating it because it's a fucking giant brownie and you feel like you should?
You know what? Oh, I really, 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 really wanted to say I would never eat it, but I'm going. I am. I'm saying, if
Fuck yeah.
how am I supposed to tell my son that I ate the largest, a piece of the largest fucking weed brownie in 2020, or whatever the hell I got to. When I'm 75, that's the shit I'm gonna remember, not almost anything else. So, yep, I did it. It tasted like shit, and I'm sure a lot of people had their fucking hand in their ass before they grabbed their slice. But you know what? I ate it with a smile.
Wow, that should not be on the poster. I feel like that's a terrible marketing slogan. You might have your hand in your ass, but this brownie's in your face. All right, so that makes me think. As I see both the gummies and the brownies, let me ask you, Dustin, when you got your choice of infused sweets, right? There's all sorts of way to consume. We talked about nebulizers earlier. I'm sure someday we'll break down the variety of consumable ways. Let's just focus on the sweets, right? Because that's a thing that appeals to several parts of our brain, right? The sugar part of it. Although that gummy, by the way, vegan. I don't know if I pointed that out. That's
I was gonna
completely vegan.
ask.
It was
I
a
was
vegan
going.
gummy. Part of their launch was this thing that Good Day Farms from Kansas City, Missouri was putting out, is the promotion of an all vegan, all organic. So that was sugar free. So, helps the little belly, gets the LBs down. You don't have to worry about that too much. Probably a bad after effect. I feel eating that much gelatin has to affect the digestive tract in ways that are undefined and unknown thus far in time and science. So we don't know what happens. And I've eaten a bottle or a jar of those like Haribo. We've all like pounded a bag of those Haribo like gummy bears or something like that. And the next day it's just a really thick multi-covered extravaganza that comes out the backside. So not good. So one of the things, when you have a sweet, right? So let's say a sweet. Let's go first in general. What kind of sweet person are you? Are you a cookie? Are you a candy? Are you a chocolate? Are you an ice cream? Where's Dustin Kava on the sweet scale?
I like my hard candy. I'll eat
Ooh,
a
that
hard.
is a
I'll suck
terrible
on a hard
answer. You can
candy.
try to sell it and justify it, but hard candy is always wrong. By the way, if you're listening to this and you're into sweets, I know that it is hard, and I'm sure the internet will roast me for this at Meet WM. They're going to let me know their feelings. But if you enjoy hard candy as your first sweet option, you're incorrect. Anyway, yeah, go ahead and tell me how much you love it.
I think the fact of infusing sweets in general, like I'm waiting for the infused turkey leg, or I want like, why is it always sugar? Or how about sugar free, but an aspartame or some shit,
Yes. Oh, it's always the
It's
aspartame.
like,
Correct.
yeah, so it's like, I want that hearty chicken pot pie that's infused, or I want, like, give me a bowl of, jambalaya, or so. I don't fucking know what anything is
Infused
called, but you know what?
jambalaya. There's a missed market for that.
I
Well,
know, that's
there's
what
a
I'm
show
saying.
like Bong Appetit, right? Bong Appetit kind of tries to raise the bar. So, but take it away. So hard candy, are you talking like a Jolly Rancher, like a Spree? Spree, by the way, I don't mind that
Orange or
candy.
lemon. I'm an orange or lemon guy, so I prefer just a straight. It's very hard to find orange hard candies anymore, but you know what? There's a couple good ones out there, and yeah, man. If
I'm seriously considering our professional working relationship at this moment.
I
Like I'm
kind of
contemplating hearing this news, hearing your love of both, which by the way, orange is my favorite fake flavor. I know when you go down the sweet fake flavor scale, like fake cherry tastes like cough medicine from when I was a child. You can throw that shit in the trash, like not taking it, right? Fake orange is decent. Fake grape tends to also go more cough syrupy. Fake banana, Runts is the only people to pull off fake banana. Hard to do. Most banana milkshakes, unless made with real bananas, are shit. So fake orange, though, usually not bad. But the singular fact that you're sitting here when we have cookies and brownies and candy bars and ice cream and a cornucopia of confectionaries available to choose from. Thank you, alliteration. You choose hard orange or hard lemon candy.
I eat my shit too fast. I am not a
Oh,
person who like sits at the dinner table and enjoys his meal. I am like, I got shit to do. I'm a Western. Like, I couldn't go traveling because my Western attitude would piss off half the countries I visit. It would.
uh,
I need the hard candy to literally dose me out in a considerable amount of time that is proper. Otherwise, to me, I'm eating that whole damn bag, and then we'll see what
do you think
happens.
your
It's
body, and I'm going to say yes, there's probably people smarter than I. We'll have a scientist on here. Do you think your body, when you're, say, you got a hard, let's say, infused Jolly Rancher, for lack of a better term, an infused hard orange candy, right, that you're sucking on, and so it has a very slow release mechanism, right, because you're taking it over the course of 30 minutes. A lot of it, kind of sublingual through the saliva into the tongue and stuff, versus a brownie, for example, where you're kind of eating the bite and then chewing it, and that product, the oil consistency is already different, right? The way it absorbs into the ingredients. So I would imagine a hard candy, if I'm doing my putting on my scientist hat here, would have a longer lasting, more powerful effect. Because I would imagine that the THC, the more ingredients like sugars and eggs and other things that can soak it up. Once again, not a
right.
scientist or a chef, clearly, uh, that it would be the bigger high, right? Like a tincture, feels way differently than a cookie. It's just the way it affects your body. So I would imagine a hard candy would feel differently on your high, so to speak, and your psychedelic or euphoric effects. I think it would feel differently than a cookie. Would you agree? I don't know if I've had a lot of hard candies. I'm more of a chocolate guy, by the way. Just like I like chocolates, I like that. Sometimes gummies, um, mostly gummies because of ease of use. Chocolate melts, right? First example, every time,
Right.
the first thing I ever got was like an infused chocolate bar someone had given me, like 100 milligram thing that they picked up in Colorado. And I ate a couple bites because they told me to take it easy, go slow on it. And I put it in my bag and I go home. When I got home, it was a puddle of chocolate goo, which by the way, I fucking licked up. I'm gonna be real with you right now.
I would have
I
hated
was
to.
not like it was in a bag. Yeah, I did not. I kind of went like it was in a pile and I was like, it's like this is not my finest moment, everyone. So this is not indicative of how I always am. But look, we all have weak moments, right? We've all had this. If you have consumed anything, like I've had some flat Pepsi before, but yeah, I was like, but gummies, they hold better, right? Hard candies, lozenges, as you're talking, hold better too. So I actually see the appeal. Uh, but I do like the cookie though. How about Dustin when they taste like the taste of it? Do you enjoy that slight uh pungent taste of cannabis in your infused items, or do you want it to be like a Zima? Is that what it's called? Zima? What's it called? Zima? The Zima of alcohol, where it just kind of tastes like something sweet. Like all these Trulies and all these hard alcohol seltzer beverages, they taste like fucking seltzer water. There's no difference. Yet all of a sudden, two in, you're like on your ass. You're like, what just happened? I was just drinking, orange mango and now I'm three sheets. So, do you like to know when you're eating it that there's a little hint of danger? Or would you prefer it to taste like a Toll House and then an hour later you're like, what just happened?
I don't mind the taste. I don't necessarily seek it out, but I certainly don't mind it at all. I mean, really at all. Certainly not compared to what the average person that I'm ever around is saying about the taste. Most people I have ever come in contact genuinely hate the taste. And I don't have that gut reaction to me. To me, it's just like, this is my medicine and it's a hell of a lot better than cough syrup. So yeah, I'm gonna eat that thing.
I don't mind the taste, but I can tell. I can tell when I have one that is just not is well prepared, right? When it just they didn't do a good enough job, and it has this kind of there's a I don't know, I can't describe it. I'm not I feel like I'm usually
It
pretty
is.
good
It's a
with words here,
grit and an oil that you
but
just
there's
can't
a
shake.
spinachy taste to it, right? Because it's a green leafy thing, right? It's a green leafy thing. So there is a like a bad cooked spinach taste sometimes that comes from a very low. I actually, I don't know if I can say this. I had one not that long ago. You actually had the same thing. I'm not gonna should go no further. It was not good because of the taste of it alone of that, and so that's an earmark. I prefer mine. Like I like to know that it has its infused. And I know that dosage size, and we'll get a good cannabis chef on here sometime to really break down dosage size. We both know a few. So we'll have some of those folks join us, talk about dosing and things like that, educate you on because cannabis. Why? Because cannabis, of course. But when I am consuming, I like to know the dosage. I know it's not pure science. I know there is some leeway to how they calculate it, but I think I roughly between different products know what 25 milligrams, what 100, what 10 is like. But I want it to taste like its competitor in the non-infused marketplace. Like I want it to taste exactly like it. I don't need it. I don't mind it. I'm gonna still eat it. Look, if I licked chocolate out of a backpack, I'm clearly gonna eat a perfectly good cookie with a slightly spinachy feel and taste to it. But I'm not gonna be happy about it. Not gonna be happy about it, Dustin. That's all I'm saying. We'll have to figure that out. We got to break down the great edible debate. I know we've talked a little bit about how it's different than your body and the way it infuses it. We'll get some people on our show coming in the future that are smarter than us. You want to talk about edibles? Let us know in the comments. Obviously, follow us at Meet WM. You want us to talk more interviews, more of the two of us just shooting the shit about cannabis? Let us know. Follow us, subscribe, like, rate, whatever we talked about at the beginning of the show. How we end our show, Dustin. And if you've watched any of the Because Cannabis is 1, 2, 3, and 4, Life and Leaf, Stoner and Sports, Crypto and Cannabis, and of course today's episode, Sooners and Sweets, we like to end the show with some of the things we learned this past week, that helped us out a little bit. Something that, because part of our journey, any journey, cannabis or non cannabis, is about growth, right? Just like the plant starts from a seed, becomes a big, beautiful stalk, it veggies, it flowers, it harvests, eventually it's consumed. So we like to learn, we like to grow. Dustin, you and I have been putting our proverbial noggins together, literally, figuratively, going through this show. I love the new look that we have today. I'm excited to see where it goes. But we had a whole pull back to break back the fourth wall here, break down the curtain, fourth wall, whatever it is, a whole font choice, a whole look ready to go. And it was similar to what you are seeing right now on the screen and what you'll see when it ends and what you're looking at, the podcast art. It's similar. It's still this really beautiful black and white path of a cannabis facility. It still has this kind of eggshelly white font to it, but it had this cool reverse imagery where one of the fonts was open, and we had all excited, all ready to go, ready to relaunch the Because Cannabis brand with BC Wayman and Dustin Cava, all ready to go until we decided to, Dustin, look at it small. Like, what's it look like in a thumbnail? Look like shit. It didn't look like shit. It was so hard to read. You couldn't read it. I learned that things look great in magnification up close, but you need to really have an honest conversation with what do you look at. And as we talked about, what do you look at when you scroll up in YouTube and such? You're like, I need it to be readable, right? All these other words, all these other things didn't matter. So I think it's always nice to have that quick reminder when you're developing a logo, when you're developing anything that someone is going to consume online, which means the majority of online consumption, not the majority, but a vast majority, is obviously phone based. And phones are very small. And so pictures on small things are going to be even smaller. So before hitting launch, before sending your marketing campaign into the world, um, mobile view, test run, see what it looks like. You may be shocked how little words, little content you actually need. That's what I learned. What'd you learn this week, Dustin?
I think it's more so. I love the idea what you just said, but I really want to drive home the fact that, like, at the end point of that, it's knowing your customer and knowing where it's being displayed, knowing where your marketing is going. In the case of us, we really had to think about, as it's scrolling on a phone, as it's being, in a smaller box on a side panel. What are some of these key things of the possibilities of where it could be viewed? And yeah, once we actually sat down and saw that, it changed everything for us. And I think in business, that's that's what's going to happen. I mean, you start a business thinking you know your customers with all the research and all the years of knowledge and experience that you're armed with. And then you open the doors, and I assure you, they will surprise you every time and ask you something outside the box. And it's one of those things of just like, it's learning, being in the grit for a little bit, knowing what's going to happen, and pushing through, and being okay to change. If we were so hard up about that image, or say we had spent $3,000 developing it with another person or something, like, this would have been a dramatic change to somehow get the emotional backing behind that to change as well within you. And in this case, I like the idea that success isn't based upon some predetermined notion that we have, and we're not set in stone with it. We're fluid, we're adaptable, that is true power, and that is true sustainability and longevity.
The word I often overuse is malleable. That's my favorite word. If you listen to me talk, when I start to talk about being shifting and adapting, I find multiple times to overuse that word into my conversation to make myself fancy and smarter than I really am. I hope you're smarter today after sitting through this show, after watching episode 4 of Because Cannabis, Sooners, and Sweets. We are available, obviously. We'll be here every Friday on YouTube for a live or pre recorded show. We'll let you know what it is, but we try to come live. You can join the show, by the way. You can visit us right now. If you join us on Fridays, we'll do a better job about posting, letting you know when we go live. Comment on the show. We'll interact with you. Help us drive this content. Let us know what you like to see. Do you like videos? Do you like topical news? Do you like interviews? Hopefully, we'll get an interview for you next week. Don't forget to follow us socially at Meet WM, MEET, WM on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. All three of those. You can find us. And then obviously wayward.media. Thankful to Wayward Media, our producers, our distributors of this show. Lots of great content on there. Be sure to check them out at Meet WM. Subscribe, like, follow, rate, all those good things. I think that's about it for today's show. Dustin, I'm pretty excited to see where it goes. Any closing comments from you, good sir?
No, I think that's it. I think we've hit all the big ones I wanted to hit, and I just wanted to say, if you're feeling empowered with the news or not, hit us a question. If oh, I know what I wanted to truly say is, if you're from Oklahoma or any of the other states that we butchered the verbiage of who you are, Oklahomians and whatnot, please shoot us a comment and let us know the proper way to say
The
everything.
Idahoers aren't going to ever call. All right, everyone. Have a great time. See you later.